sing, advance, Australia fair.
You can have a seat. My name is Andrea Puertas. I am part of the Club Ecuador Vive. I'm going to be the MC for this event. First, I would like to invite Honorable Telmo Languiller, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, to welcome us. Could you please come to the stage?
Muy buenas tardes. Good afternoon. May I first of all acknowledge His Excellency Ambassador Leonardo Arizaga, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ecuador. Bienvenido, Ministro. His Excellency Raúl Cancotena, Ecuadorian Ambassador to Australia. Bienvenido, mi amigo. Elizabeth Moreno, Chief of Staff, Vice Minister's Office, to Sandra Ordóñez, to Steve Gamboa, Advisor to the Minister of Renewable Resources, and last but not least, if I might, Tatiana, a local Ecuadorian bridge between the students and the community and our parliament. To the students, estudiantes, to members of Ecuador Vive, to members of Ecuador Research and Entrepreneurship Network, EREN. May I also acknowledge with us John Richardson, the Director of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. I spotted Bernard Willaham. Thank you, Bernard, the former chair of the Council on Latin American Relations, to Jeffrey Whitmer, the Consul of Colombia, and many other members of the Consular Corps. Thank you so much for being here today with the students, with the estudiantes, with us in the Victorian Parliament, And last but not least, my friend and colleague, the President of the Legislative Council, Bruce Atkinson, a good friend also of Ecuador and Latin America. Can I say, welcome to the Victorian Parliament. Welcome, if I might, to the most multicultural parliament in Australia. Welcome to the state, if I might say, where bipartisanship in relation to our commitment to multiculturalism, to cultural diversity and to religious diversity is second to none. Now, I'm always honored to share the podium with Bruce because we all very strongly committed to diversity and to ensuring that our cultural, linguistic and religious backgrounds are celebrated, enhanced, and certainly given future in a wonderful state. Can I say that we also have in common with Bruce, the President of the Council and the government and the opposition, our friendship with Ecuador. And we welcome the delegation from Ecuador and the Vice Minister, and indeed we welcome the students who are doing so well here in Melbourne. Can I say that in the few hours that we've worked with the Vice Minister and indeed with the Ambassador, we know very clearly and with a lot of certainty that Ecuador is a nation and a government and a people committed to education, to research, to innovation, to giving its people a future. And if I may, as I have said when I became Speaker of this Parliament, in recognition of Nelson Mandela's commitment to education, who quite correctly said that education was the most transformative weapon that we could give any individual to transform himself or herself, indeed the community that they live in and their society. And it is in that spirit that we recognize the good public policy of your government, Minister, your commitment to education, your commitment to research, to innovation, your commitment to a knowledge nation and a knowledge city, if I might pronounce in my Uruguayan accent, Yachay, you would say Yachay, and the many discussions that I know we've had today and you will continue to have into the future with Victoria and with the government. So can I say welcome to the Parliament that delivered the 8-hour day. In 1856, it was in this Parliament, in the construction of the vestibule, that construction workers claimed the 8-hour day, an important achievement for the world, not just our nation. But the second also important achievement was the achievement of the secret ballot, where in 1856, designed by a British lawyer by the name of Clark, Australians became the first jurisdiction in the world to be able to elect their authorities by way of a secret ballot in 1856. First men, but in 1857, women were able to elect by way of a secret ballot their authorities. An important pedestal, an important establishment, an institution of our democracy. And we're very proud of that, and we share that very humbly and respectfully with the world community. With these remarks, may I say again, welcome, bienvenido, embajador, bienvenido, viceministro, delegación de Ecuador, estudiantes. Quiero felicitarles por el trabajo que realizan y reiterarles nuestra amistad y nuestro compromiso de seguir trabajando con ustedes, juntos, en hermandad, por el beneficio de los pueblos de Ecuador y por el beneficio del pueblo de Victoria. A través de ustedes y particularmente por el compromiso serio que ustedes desempeñan y realizan, nosotros lo sabemos, en formarse, en educarse y en darse futuro a ustedes mismos como estudiantes, pero indudablemente a vuestras comunidades y a vuestros países y a nuestras naciones. With these remarks, may I introduce Bruce Atkinson, the President of the Legislative Council, a friend of Ecuador who very proudly, happily did the National Day of Ecuador with the Ambassador last year at the University of Melbourne, and someone who I know is a friend of Latin America because he's committed to the partnership, the growth of the relationship, who hasn't yet been to Ecuador. And so I think we must probably have to work through and make sure that he and I visit Ecuador as soon as we can. Bruce Atkinson.
Hola. And gracias is about as far as it goes. Can I join Telma Languia, the Speaker, in welcoming you to Parliament here in Victoria today and to congratulate you on establishing this conference and creating this opportunity, this platform for an exchange of ideas, for the presentation of 6 key papers that provide an introduction to the sort of dialogue that I expect you've already had and will continue to have in exploring ideas that are so important to the future of Ecuador and indeed Australia and the global community. Can I join the Speaker in welcoming the Vice Minister who joins us here today because he recognises just how important this conference is, because it's been convened by young people from Ecuador. Students who are experiencing a learning environment in our universities here in Victoria and coming to understand the culture of Australia and some of the aspirations of Australians, but who are also pushing forward their ideas, contesting some of the values, some of the ideas that perhaps we have, because that's what university learning is all about, and that's what this conference is all about with Ecuador Vive. I also welcome the Ambassador, a good friend of Victoria, and it's a delight to have you here today joining this conference as well, and indeed the staff supporting the Vice Minister on this occasion, and of course my good friend John Richardson from DFAT, who has had a number of diplomatic postings overseas. I'm not sure that any of them were in South America. One was in South America. Which country was that? Argentina. Well, that doesn't really count. That's further across the continent. We're mostly interested in Ecuador and Peru and Chile and Colombia and the countries on the west coast that look out across the Pacific at us, and we look out across the Pacific at them, and we recognise some real opportunities between us. Can I say that it is a fantastic thing that the students had the initiative here, your students from Ecuador had the initiative to establish Ecuador Vive, because indeed it provides that platform which has not only established this conference, which is not only working towards a number of support programs for students from Ecuador when they're studying here, but indeed it starts to establish that opportunity for an ongoing dialogue, for the ongoing friendships and goodwill, but more importantly, some of that knowledge dissemination that is so important going forward, as I said, for Ecuador, for Australia and the global community. Do you know, education is a very big export for Victoria. We are an education state. We have universities of high calibre that bring together students from many countries around the world to learn and to exchange ideas. It's a very big export for us in terms of dollars. But I think the most important thing about our education services here in Victoria, the most important thing about bringing people from so many countries, so many students from so many countries to study here in Victoria, is that they come to understand Australia and the opportunities of Australia, and they come to build relationships here that are going to be so important into the future, because each one of the students is going to go back into leadership positions in Ecuador and perhaps in other communities, including worldwide organisations, perhaps like the United Nations and so forth. The students who come to Victoria not just from Ecuador, but from all of these other countries that come here, including the Chinas and Malaysias and Indias and so forth, all of those students invariably go back into leadership positions in politics, in business, in NGOs, in the community sector, and so forth. And they're enriched by the experience here, but more importantly, they're empowered by the experience here because they understand the opportunities that come through collaboration. And they've got the bridges, the goodwill that goes with studying in a different country. So you ought to be congratulated for taking on the great adventure of an education overseas. You ought to be congratulated for the work that you've done in establishing this platform, Ecuador Vive. You ought to be congratulated for the work that you do as students and for this sort of initiative of this conference, which allows you to start to recognise how you can use your knowledge, how you can expand your vision, how you can develop your ideas further. And that's what this is all about. And that's why the Speaker and I, representing the Victorian Parliament, that's why John Richardson, representing DFAT, and therefore the agency so involved in our global networks as a country, and that's why the Vice Minister and the Ambassador all wanted to be here today to extend our congratulations and to encourage you further, to allow you to dare to dream with your ideas and to expand those ideas further. As you go back as leaders in Ecuador and around the globe, I know that you'll remember your experience here in Victoria, and I know that particularly given the commitment of your government in Ecuador to education, the Knowledge City project that's so significant in terms of the political agenda of Ecuador, I know that you will contribute a great deal in your careers going forward, but that together through collaboration with Australians and indeed with people from other countries, that you will ensure that the world is a better place. Congratulations on being part of this conference, and I wish you well in all of the discussions that you have and in the friendships that you make, the contacts that you make. I think this is a conference that's likely to expand your Facebook's friends exponentially. All the best. Gracias.
Thank you, Honorable Atkinson. I just want to mention that we are very happy to count with people all over the world, and in Ecuador, they are watching us on our YouTube channel. Thank you for being with us today. Now, following the agenda, I would like to introduce Fernando Játiva. He is a PhD candidate, Vice President of Ecuador Vive. He joined the University of Melbourne as a master's student in the area of chemical engineering. He was selected for summer internship in the same university, which allowed him to develop as a researcher and subsequently apply for a PhD. His PhD thesis is on biometrics and asthma treatment. He will give us some words on behalf of Ecuador Vive Club. Please, Fernando.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I would like to start. Honorable Telmo Languilla, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. Honorable Bruce Atkinson, President of the Legislative Council. And Mr. Leonardo Arizaga, Vice Minister of the Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Ecuador. Raúl Gangotena, Ambassador of Ecuador in Australia. Guest faculty, fellow students, guests, a very pleasant good afternoon. First, I would like to thank the honorable speaker, Telmo Languilla, for his invaluable support and the sharing of the Parliament House of the people of Victoria for this significant academic event. I want to tell you that this generous gesture has really encouraged us to actually work harder to meet the expectation of these beautiful people, of this beautiful country that has welcomed us so generously. Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Secondly, I would like to express our deep gratitude to the University of Melbourne for believing in us and the whole team of Ecuador Vive and EREN for their utmost dedication in making this event possible. Now, I want to share with you, especially to those who are not Ecuadorians, 2 words in Quechua. This is the official language in Ecuador. And those words are sumac causai, which means living well, el buen vivir, which in fact is the main theme of the National Development Plan of Ecuador. Let me be clear about one thing. I'm not here to talk about politics, but actually focus on philosophical ideas. Because in order to forge ahead with a truly ambitious national project, we must focus our efforts in the same direction, always moving forward. And for all the Ecuadorians, that direction is the sumac causai, living well. It is mentioned in the National Development Plan of Ecuador, the following words: living well cannot be improvised, but planned. Living well refers to a lifestyle that allows happiness and permanence of cultural and environment diversity. It is equivalent to harmony, equity, solidarity. Moreover, it's not about opulence or infinite economic growth. These words are the starting point of this National Development Plan, which has made possible to all of us students to study here. We are part of a strategy to address several of our national objectives, especially the ones related to the production and change on our economic matrix. We will expand all our academic background in order to meet the needs of our people, so we can change our country for the better. Even like this, like Ecuadorian Ideas, have the goal of promoting intercultural encounters. We're here to strengthen our country's capacity to generate scientific and technical knowledge, such as the one that we will present here today. In the long term, this will generate more networks of knowledge, and we will contribute to the generation of pools of skills that complement each other. I look at you today, at all of you, and I see the leaders of the future. And I'm not talking about a hypothetical future that is far away, intangible. I'm talking about a future that starts right now. I see leaders with a strong spirit and kind hearts, who win over themselves and against loneliness and alienation, but always an eye and a heart on a global and an ideal, sumac causai. Yes, you are the ones. We are the ones who must face the challenges of this new country that we want to build, this new Ecuador. We're the ones who willingly receive the sacrifice of Ecuador, who works every day so we can have our scholarships. We're the one entrusted with the mission to lead Ecuador towards the seed of development, the national goal, which we all aspire and deserve, the Ecuador of the sumac causai. Yes, we are the ones who study every day and work really hard to develop these ideas and projects, many of which we are not able to present today, but all of which deserve to be in this conference. We are the ones committed to everyone back home and committed to their future. Back home in Ecuador, we have an extraordinary writer by the name of Juan Montalvo, who said, "Disgrace to the people whose youth does not make the world tremble." And with that, I want to end, posing a challenge to all of us. Let's make the world tremble. Tremble with our cutting-edge research and innovative ideas. For that, Ecuador studies, Ecuador lives, Ecuador works. Ecuador Vive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando. We are very pleased to introduce Giovanna Cordova. She is a director from the Cenecit institution. We are very happy to have her today, despite it being late in Ecuador. and she's connected via Skype right now. She will share with us some thoughts.
Buenas tardes, estimadas autoridades, estimados académicos, queridos estudiantes ecuatorianos y residentes en Australia. Reciban un afectuoso saludo desde Ecuador a nombre del Secretario de Educación Superior, Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación Economista René Ramírez. Quisiera iniciar mencionando a la educación como uno de los pilares fundamentales para alcanzar el desarrollo de la nación en diferentes sectores, entre los que tenemos el ámbito laboral, económico, científico y tecnológico. Por esta razón, el desarrollo de las capacidades de los ecuatorianos se ha convertido en una de las prioridades del gobierno nacional. Una educación superior, con altos estándares de calidad académica, ayuda a contrarrestar la deficiencia histórica que ha tenido el Ecuador en materia de desarrollo. En la búsqueda de mejorar la calidad de la educación superior, adicional a la reestructuración que se lleva a cabo en nuestras universidades e institutos del país, la Secretaría de Educación Superior, Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación marcha una política pública de becas mediante la cual se democratiza el acceso a la educación superior y de este modo se fortalece el talento humano ecuatoriano a través del financiamiento de estudios de tercer y cuarto nivel en áreas prioritarias para el Ecuador en universidades de prestigio académico a nivel internacional. De este modo, los ecuatorianos se constituyen como los actores principales de la transformación. Los programas se basan en tres principios fundamentales. Estos son la igualdad encaminada a todos y todas las mismas posibilidades de acceso a estudios de nivel superior. La calidad, las universidades a las que tienen acceso los ecuatorianos deben contar con los parámetros necesarios para brindar una educación superior de excelencia. Y la pertinencia, orientada a las áreas estratégicas en las que el país tiene una mayor demanda de talento humano para alcanzar el desarrollo. Con estos criterios, contamos con varias iniciativas o programas de becas, como la convocatoria abierta dirigida a estudios de cuarto nivel, gracias a la amplia gama de destinos, se ha convertido en uno de los programas hitos de esta Secretaría. Universidades de excelencia, a través de las cuales se puede realizar estudios de nivel técnico, tecnológico, pregrado y cuarto nivel, en las mejores universidades del mundo. También contamos con el programa del Globo Común, cuyas ofertas recibidas por países amigos gracias a la gestión del actual gobierno completan la oferta de becas que posee la Secretaría, tanto en destino como en áreas del conocimiento. Docentes universitarios, a través del cual se busca mejorar la calidad, la enseñanza en instituciones de educación superior del país. Enseña Inglés, que es un programa manejado en conjunto con el Ministerio de Educación para afrontar uno de los principales inconvenientes de la educación media, la enseñanza del idioma inglés y otros programas dirigidos a contar con un equipo de investigadores con técnicas actualizadas para nuestro desarrollo científico, como es el actual programa de becas para investigadores y el concurso de reconocimiento a la investigación dirigido a becarios. Uno de los principales compromisos que quieren los becarios es retornar al país tras culminar exitosamente sus estudios para los conocimientos adquiridos en el exterior en beneficio del Ecuador. De esta manera se evidencia el beneficio de la inversión realizada por el Estado ecuatoriano. Con el objetivo de esta política de becas sea integral, se ha constituido la red de becarios, una iniciativa que busca brindar ayuda, apoyo a cada una de las personas que ha tenido la oportunidad de capacitarse en el exterior financiando sus estudios con una beca, para que su retorno pueda insertarse laboralmente en el país. Los becarios retornados, especialmente en los programas de convocatoria abierta y universidades de excelencia, tienen la plena libertad de seleccionar una institución pública, privada o cualquier otro tipo de organismo. para transmitir sus conocimientos. Sin embargo, para facilitar una inserción laboral efectiva, la red de becarios se enlaza como un puente entre becarios e instituciones o empresas del país. Actualmente, los becarios retornados tienen los conocimientos adquiridos en diferentes sectores laborales del país. Aproximadamente el 67% labora en el sector educativo, lo cual comprende tanto instituciones de educación superior como educación media. Aproximadamente el 25% se encuentra en instituciones públicas, el 17% en instituciones privadas y el 1% en organizaciones no gubernamentales. Quiero indicar también que gracias a la política de becas y la excelencia académica demostrada por los ecuatorianos, actualmente contamos ya con más de 1.500 becas entregadas. Los beneficiados tienen la oportunidad de participar activamente en la formación del ecosistema de la innovación social. Para mí ha sido muy grato compartir en esto con ustedes los esfuerzos realizados por el gobierno ecuatoriano, específicamente en el tema de la educación e investigación, que a mediano plazo constituirá la base del Ecuador competitivo en la economía mundial. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Giovanna. I'm sure that you share with me the excitement of having high-level authorities today supporting this initiative. Now, following the agenda, we are very pleased to welcome Leonardo Arizaga, Vice Minister of Foreign Relations of Ecuador. He will be sharing with us his presentation on outcomes and challenges for the citizen revolution. I ask to give your full attention to Mr. Arizaga. The open question time will be at the end of his presentation. Please help me welcoming him to the stage. Mr. Arizaga.
Good afternoon. How are you? It's a pleasure to be here in such a beautiful venue with Ecuadorians and people interested in Ecuador. Who is from Ecuador here? Most of you. Who has been to Ecuador? All right. Thank you for coming. I know all of you are busy, studying, working with a full schedule, but I want to start off thanking you and transmitting a sincere greeting from our President, Rafael Correa, from our Foreign Minister, Ricardo Patiño, and from the Citizens' Revolution that we're living in Ecuador. You know, Ecuador is living a profound change in its structure, in its policies, and the way we govern our people. And we have done this in the last 8 years with tremendous success. And one of the reasons we've had so much success is because we've been able to do many things that were only a dream, things we wanted to do, but never could really realize. When I was young and I went to study in the US, it was very difficult for me to go to a university, to get the money, to get a degree, to go back home. Now, we have around 700 Ecuadorians studying in Australia, fully paid scholarships, based on merit. On merit. We don't choose our students based on ideology, on whether they're from the north or the south, tall or not too tall, big like me or thin. You're chosen because of your academic proficiency. And this is something I want to mention at the beginning of this, which will be a sum up of what we've been doing in Ecuador in the last few years. Yesterday, I was in New Zealand. Tomorrow, I will be in Canberra. And everywhere I go, I try to talk about what's happening in Ecuador. How we have been able to reduce poverty in a tremendous way, to build infrastructure, to improve the quality of life of our people. I don't know how I can change the presentation. Is someone helping us? Thank you. Yesterday I spoke an hour. Should I speak more or less? Huh? Those who don't know him, he's our president. He has won many elections, and yet he's very young. Young for me to say. I'm 51, he's 52 years old. But he's been our president 8 years and has won all the elections he presented himself. One of the things we've done is we changed a lot, but in order to do that, we needed money. So what we did is, first of all, for the last 15 years, we've created a tax culture in our country. When I entered the Ministry of Foreign Affairs nearly 30 years ago, the only ones that paid taxes were public employees, because it was automatically deducted from your salary. Now, in Ecuador, everyone pays taxes. Everyone. And this is a huge success because we've done it by lowering our tax rate and by increasing our revenue. Just as an example, the 6 or 7 years before we were in government, we collected $20 billion in tax revenue. By changing our culture and having high-level professionals and reducing corruption to a minimum with zero tolerance to corruption, we increased our revenue in taxes to $70 billion. We tripled our income with lower taxes because of this. We renegotiated our foreign debt, which saved us $8 billion. We changed the oil contracts we had, which have saved us billions of dollars. Because in the past, the profits went abroad. Now they stay at home. And all of this has helped us use the money we previously spent paying our foreign debt. That money now we spend paying our social debt. So instead of giving money to the banks and international organizations, we use that money in social projects. In the past, we spent around $2 billion in social programs. Now we're spending $10 billion in social programs, 5 times more than we did before. And a concrete result has been that 1.5 million people have left poverty. In the past, 1 out of 3 Ecuadorians was poor. Nowadays, 1 out of 5 is poor. Still, 22% is a high number. But because of our social policies, 1.5 million people left poverty in Ecuador in the last 8 years. When we started the government, the 10% richest part of society earned 40 times more than 10% poorest. 42%, 42 times more. After 8 years, the 10% that is the richest earns 20 times more than the 10% that are the poorest. It's still a huge difference, but we reduced inequality by half. Another important achievement. We reduced malnutrition from 25% to 6%. And one of the things we're doing is living in an educational revolution. Most of you Ecuadorians who are here are living that revolution. And I give you an example. We're building right now 900 new schools. In this next 2 or 3 years, we will build 300. Schools that have the best infrastructure, the best IT, the best teachers available. At the beginning of our government, 0 schools had international baccalaureate. Now, public schools, 150 high schools have international baccalaureates. And in 2 years, 500 high schools will have an international baccalaureate. We took out politics from our educational system. Those of you that are Ecuadorians know that the teachers' union was managed by the Communist Party of Chinese influence. We replaced 12,000 teachers and hired 12,000 new teachers based on merit, not ideology. So a concrete result has been that in the last 2 years, 200,000 students have left private schools to join public schools. We still have a long way to go. But when 20% of these high school students change from private to public school, it's because we're doing something right. These are the statistics of the last 2 years. In 2013, 60,000 students moved from private to public schools, and last year, nearly 100,000 and 120,000 students. This is around 20% of our student population. The other thing we did is we changed the life of our people with disabilities. Usually a country has 10% of its population with some type of disabilities. So what we did the first 2 years of our government is we went to all the 24 provinces we have and we visited all the people with disabilities. It took us 2 years to do this. And after that, we attended to their needs, to all of them. Now, all or nearly all Ecuadorians with disability have a job, because by law, both public and private enterprises have to hire at least 4% of the staff with people with disabilities. We pay a family member to take care of a member of the family that has a disability. Because usually what happens is when you're poor, you have to go and get a job to take care of a family member. So what we do is we pay a member of the family a minimum wage so that they can take care of their family member. This has transformed the lives of tens of thousands of people. And the person who did this was our previous vice president, who left power a couple of years ago. And he had an approval rating of 98% in a poll that had a margin of error of 4%. When a politician leaves government out of his own volition with an approval rating like this, it's because he did something to change the life of our people. We have improved healthcare by 3. We improved the birth rate statistics. We prioritized our healthcare system. We reduced child labor by nearly 7%. Ecuador is a middle income and now an upper middle income country. So you have an idea, we have around 2 million people living and working in the banana industry. The difference with other countries is that in Ecuador, our banana plantations are basically owned by small and medium farmers, not large enterprises or companies. And banana plantations are very labor intensive. And yet, because we have improved public education and our social programs, child labor has been reduced to a historic low. Basic education, that is the first 6 years of education in a primary school, has improved by nearly 4% to 96%. And something we've done, which is very important, we've improved the quality of our teachers. Now, a lot of students are accepted by the best universities in the world. You know that in Ecuador, any student that is accepted in one of the 200 best universities in the world, the state automatically pays his tuition. It's called Universidades de Excelencia. This is why we've been able to do it. We have the highest investment in higher education in Latin America. The average in Latin America is 1.29 GDP investment. OECD countries invest around 2% of their GDP in higher education. In Ecuador, we have a yearly investment of 2.2% of our GDP. In this government, we have earmarked $1 billion for scholarships. Thanks to that, we have 10,500 students getting their masters and PhDs abroad. Before our government, in 6 years, 230 students could go abroad and get their master's and PhD degree. Now, we have 10,500 students. Out of these, around 600 to 700 are in Australia, and 300 are here in Melbourne. And I was very proud that so many Ecuadorians are studying here. But then I was told that Victoria has 175,000 foreign students. 300 is not a lot among the 175,000 students. But for us, where we used to have 1 or 2 students in Australia, to have 600 or 700 studying here is a great achievement. My wife, I was telling our colleagues yesterday, always tells me I speak like a nouveau riche. You know, I've done this, we have done that, our achievements. But it's because we've been able to achieve so much in such a short period of time. 237 scholarships. If you would have been born 10 years ago, the Ecuadorians that are here, you would not be here. Because you're part of the 10,482 students that are abroad getting your master's and PhD degrees. And one thing we did in Ecuador is we closed 14 universities with 60,000 students because their academic level was low, very low. For the first time, we have entry exams in our public universities. For the first time, our universities are qualified if they are A, B, C, D universities, based on their academic level, on their research, on the papers they do, on the quality of their staff and their students. This has been an extremely important change in our lives. Because we are aware that even though Ecuador is doing very well, we're doing well. We are now an upper middle income country, not a middle income country, an upper middle income country. We have political stability, legal security, and important economic growth, but yet we're producing and exporting the same things we have always done. We still sell oil and bananas and shrimp and flowers and roses and coffee. We basically live from commodities. And this year is a difficult year because oil prices are low, and 50% of our exports are oil prices, come from oil revenue. So this is why you are here, the Ecuadorian students, because you will help us change our country with what you are studying abroad, with the knowledge that you're bringing back home, with the work you will do in our country. A huge challenge. One of the things we're doing, which Telmo already mentioned, is building a city of knowledge. We already spent $1 billion in our city of knowledge with a new university. We will have there the best research institutes of our country. We will have research institutes of the best transnational corporations. Huawei, for example, has decided to have a research and development lab in Yachay. Microsoft. We have the best professors we could hire teaching in our university. And it will help us change our country. It's the most ambitious project of our history, which will be worth around $20 billion. But this investment will pay itself when we change the structure of our economy and have a knowledge-based economy. One of the things we've done is to reduce crime. We have now one of the lowest crime rates in our region. We did some, I was ambassador in China, also ambassador in Venezuela, but when I was in China, we built something which is called the ECU 911. In Ecuador, no one knows that it's a Chinese project with Chinese technology and Chinese financing. But 10 years ago or 20 years ago, when you had a crime in Ecuador, the police didn't talk to the armed forces or to the ambulance or to civil defense or to the bomberos, ¿cómo se dice bomberos? To the firemen. Because their communications were separate, different. They were not interconnected. Now all of them work together. If you have the chance to go to one of the ECU centers, you will see the change that has taken place. It didn't cost a lot of money, around $250 million. But we have these type of citizen security policies and monitoring all over Ecuador. We have transformed our judicial system. We have improved it by 500%. If 10 years ago you wanted to follow a lawsuit in a court in Ecuador, it would have taken 5 times longer than it does today. My wife is a lawyer, and we've been abroad for a few years in China and Venezuela. And when we went back home, we saw how the buildings changed, how the infrastructure changed, how the procedures were better. We still have a long way to go, but justice has progressed in Ecuador. We have a higher than average growth rate than Latin America. This is what I mentioned. We pay taxes. When you go back home to Ecuador, you will pay taxes. And it's not an option, it's just something we do naturally. And it's because the people that work in our tax revenue service are now highly professional, well paid, transparent, and everyone, when you go to a doctor, you ask for the bill, because if you don't have the bill, the insurance will not pay you. And we cross information between your what you spend, what you do, and at the end of the day, it's the best you can do is to live in peace and pay your taxes. This has allowed us to triple our investment in our country. The average in our region is around 4 to 5% of GDP investment. We spent 11% of our GDP investing in infrastructure. If you go back home or you visit Ecuador, you will see 8,000 kilometers of new highways. New highways, the best highways in Latin America, built in the last 8 years, because we do it fast and with excellence. Because what we have to do always is work based on excellence. We have the lowest unemployment rate of Latin America, 4.5%. And we have, for the first time in our history, more employment than underemployment. Yes. I was mentioning yesterday that we used to have in Quito an association of medical doctors that are taxi drivers. Yes, that's unemployment. When you go back home, it will always be difficult to find a job. It's not easy to find a job. It takes time and patience and effort. And we all hope that you will work in the areas that you selected for your studies. And that should be also your dream and your life project. But unemployment has been reduced to a historic low, and underemployment has diminished significantly. For the first time in our history, what you earn allows you to pay what we call la canasta básica, which is the minimum you need to live. Not the minimum wage, the minimum amount of money you need to live in order to have a decent life. For example, no company in Ecuador can declare a profit until or unless all its workers earn enough money to pay for this, la canasta básica. When every one of its employees has enough money to survive with that minimum of existential needs, can they declare a profit. For the first time in our history, we distribute the profits of the companies in the communities we build the projects. In the past, when you had an oil company or any type of company working in our country, 15% of the profits went to the employees. Now, 3% of the profits go to the employees, and 12% of the profits go to the local community. So, where we built electricity projects, which we're building 10 of them, worth $5 billion. The places you built the hydroelectric dams, the community receives 12% of the profit of that company. So the people that live in the community have new schools, new healthcare centers, new roads, new infrastructure. And we do it directly with the people, based on their needs. In the last 8 years, 1.4 million people have joined Social Security. It is now nearly impossible to have a worker that has no Social Security. And we have decided to do something with this unique, difficult, and revolutionary. We have decided to include all housewives in our Social Security system. 1.5 million women. Because in economic statistics, housewives are identified as, I don't remember the exact term, but inactive workers. If I tell my mother, who's a housewife, that she doesn't work, she will not like it, or my wife, or my sister. Because they work every day for their family, taking care of all of us. So we decided to include 1.5 million housewives, 10% of our population, in the Social Security system. They will pay a little bit of money, and the rest we will take care of. All of this has allowed us to jump 30 places in the competitive rating in the world. Good highways, clean government, efficient policies. So in 8 years, we've jumped 30 places from around 100 to 70 in the competitiveness. We have doubled the number of tourists that visit Ecuador, from 840,000 to 1.5 million tourists a year. Very few of those are Australians. More Australians, and I think here we have around 300 Ecuadorians that can have 300 boy or girlfriends from Australia and their families. We have solved, and I will finish because they're telling me I speak too much. I usually speak too much. But we are solving two main problems we have. The first is that we don't produce enough electricity. We import electricity from Colombia and from Peru. Hundreds of millions of dollars. The last 5 years, we imported $1 billion of electricity, which is depressing because I've been there and we signed checks for $180 million of electricity we buy, and it's money we spend and never see again. Never see again. So we're building, when I was ambassador in China, out of these 10 projects, we decided to build 9, worth $5 billion. They will be finished next year and the year after that. And because of this, right now, 43% of our electricity is hydro. In 2 years, 95% of our electricity will be hydroelectric, which means that we will have clean and cheap electricity. It's the best $5 billion we can spend. Because if you lived in our country in the past, we will have suffered from electricity cuts. You couldn't take the elevator, buy food because the refrigerator didn't work. That will be part of the past, and we will have the cheapest electricity in our region. The second thing we've done, and I'm finishing, I promise, is that we export crude oil. We export around $12 billion in crude oil. But each year we import $6 billion to $6.5 billion in gasoline and in diesel. This is money you spend and never see again. And this is money you have to use for the thermoelectric plants that generate electricity, but also for our economy. So we decided to build a refinery worth $10 billion. In 4 or 5 years, we will refine all our crude oil that will cover our domestic demand, which means that we will not have to import 1 cent of diesel and gasoline. So the refinery will pay itself. The last thing I want to mention is that we're building water projects worth $1 billion. In our country, we have regions where it rains a lot in one part of the year, and the other part of the year it's dry. You have no water, no irrigation. And at another part of the year, it's flooded, and you don't know what to do. So we're building projects that control water flooding, that irrigate, and that give you potable water. In Bulu Bulu, in Chone, Naranjal, Cañar, many places that the Ecuadorians know. We have We have tripled internet access in Ecuador. It's the highest per capita internet access in Latin America. Many challenges. But one of the things we're doing, just as a final example, is that we have decided, as we're building electricity projects, we will change 3 million gas stoves, gas kitchens, into electricity kitchens. 3 million. This year, we're going to sell 1 million. And 500,000 of those we will give to the poorest families of our country. Because in Ecuador, both gas and oil are subsidized. Each year we pay $800 million in subsidies of gas and oil. By doing this, spending $250 million in new kitchens, we will save a huge amount of money, and we will improve the safety of our homes. So this is what I wanted to tell you. A part of the revolution we're living, the changes that we're undertaking, and the way we have transformed the lives of millions of people. It's very easy to talk and to say things, but what the people care the most is to see projects fulfilled and dreams realized. It is obvious that we are still a developing country. We have a lot of needs, a lot of problems that we will have to solve. But I think we're on the right path, So I just wanted to share this information, this news, this message from far away, from Ecuador, that I hope you can visit with your girlfriends and boyfriends, and that you can tell your friends about, of what we're doing in Ecuador, a country that is both very beautiful, very friendly, and I don't know the Ecuadorians that are here, but when I'm abroad and I listen to our national anthem, nuestro himno nacional, siempre nos emociona. We always get emotional because we think about our families, our friends, and our food, delicious food. Thank you very much for your time and your patience.
Thank you, Vice Minister. Now is the time if you have some questions to Mr. Arizaga. If you have some questions, please raise your hand and we will give you the microphone. Someone has a question? Okay, on the back.
Hi. So you mentioned that Ecuador has gone up like 30 points in the ranking, competitiveness ranking. However, according to some reports from the CELAC and other economic institutions, Ecuador has just received 0.3% of foreign investment in the region. So why do you think this has happened?
In the last 8 years, we've been able to execute projects worth $28 billion in mining, in electricity, in oil, in water and telecommunications. $28 billion. We just came from a New Zealand, and we're presenting now to Australia a portfolio of projects worth $25 billion. What we have been able to do is to use, in the best way possible, our own money, and we've been able to get loans for these important projects. In some cases, we have foreign investment, like, for example, a mine project called Mirador, which is worth $1.5 billion, which we agreed upon. But this year, only 300 million will be invested. But those numbers reflect the reality of the competitiveness of our country. If investment has not come yet, it will come each year in a higher amount. I'm sure of that. ¿Alguna otra pregunta? ¿Sí?
Thank you. What happens when Korea has to go? I mean, eventually there are always terms in Latin America, or if he would not be re-elected, what would happen to this entire project?
We always try, when we work, to institutionalize everything we do. No one is indispensable. And we said this when I was in Venezuela, President Hugo Chavez died, and we said the process has to go on with or without that leader. When I was ambassador in China, I left, and no one noticed I left because everything was institutionalized. So we're trying to do that. And it's natural. In a democracy like ours, you have the possibility to win or to lose an election. And I think what we have done cannot be undone. No one can fold or roll over the 8,000 kilometers of highway we built. They're there for everyone to see. Or the 10 hydroelectric projects or electricity projects we built. They're there to be used. So we are prepared to continue the process with our president or with another government.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, compañero Vice Minister. My question is with regards to international relations of Ecuador. Does the government currently have a plan to first of all, diversify its portfolio of trade partners, perhaps by pursuing more trade agreements with countries like Russia, China, India, and South Africa, so the big countries? And whether it has any plans to reform its currency system to move away from the US dollar.
We have opened in the last 8 years 36 trade offices abroad. In China, in India, 36, in Qatar. So we are diversifying our products and diversifying our markets. It's not easy, but we're trying. We just agreed upon a trade agreement with the European Union. And by the end of this year, we will sign it. And it will be in place and will help us secure our exports to the European Union, where we export 30% of our products. So trade is a very important part of a diplomatic work. and we cannot, we diversify also the countries with whom we have financing projects. We have 22 different revenues for our international financing. It's something we work on very hard. Our constitution says that we cannot have more than 40% of debt of our GDP. Right now, the year before last, it was 24%. Maybe last year it went up. But we are very far away from the 40%. So you have an idea, Greece, I think, has 150% of its GDP in foreign debt. In our case, it's around 24, 25. So we're prepared.
As in terms of entrepreneurship, does the government have any programs in place to help entrepreneurs start up businesses?
We have simplified the procedures in order to establish companies. We have something which is called Tramitón, where anyone that wants to do something and faces a bureaucratic wall can present his query. So we have simplified the number of requirements and the days for you to establish a company, for example. But for young people, for example, we have a project called Mi Primer Empleo, My First Job, which helps you find a job when you come back to Ecuador. Or in the case of the best students, what we do in Ecuador is usually we hire between 500 to 600 of the best students of the university, and we automatically give them a job in the public institutions. So there are many opportunities. It's difficult. It's difficult. When you go back home, it's not that you get out of the plane and you have a job. You have to look for it, you have to apply, you have to send your CV, and you have to participate en los concursos de oposición y merecimientos. Gracias.
Thank you very much. I would like to extend my warmest gratitude for your time, for being here, and your efforts at our conference. Thank you. Okay. Now is the time to present our first student speaker, Paul Guillen. He's studying a Master of Biotechnology at the University of Melbourne. He holds a Bachelor in Pharmaceutical Biochemistry from the State University of Cuenca, Ecuador. Prior to this, he has worked at the Ministry of Public Health of Ecuador. Paul's research project is in the field of natural product chemistry, which aims to search for bioactives from Australia's biodiversity that could potentially treat human diseases. His presentation will focus on the experiences and analytical skills gained, which can be applied to bioprospects, Ecuador's biodiversity. His topic today is the search for bioactive natural products from Australia biodiversity. Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone. Have you ever wondered when you are sick, let's say stomach pain, and usually we drink a chamomile infusion? Why after that we started getting better? The reason is because plants produce some compounds or called secondary metabolites or natural products that basically has some effect against different health problems. So that's basically the aim of my project, which is the search for bioactive natural products from Australia's biodiversity. I'm going to start with just a few concepts. What are metabolites? Metabolites are small compounds that are considered intermediates in different metabolic processes in nature, and they are classified as primary and secondary metabolites. Primary metabolites are directly involved in the development, growth, and reproduction of the organism, while secondary metabolites, they are not involved in the main functions, but they are produced by these organisms in order to interact with with its environment as a mechanism of defense or to attract pollinators. And that's actually the compounds we're interested, because these secondary metabolites are the ones that have some bioactivity. So natural products are the best, one of the main sources for the discovery and the development of novel drugs that are required for the treatment of different diseases. More than 80%, according to the World Health Organization, more than 80% of the world population still uses traditional medicine as the first choice of healthcare. More than 60% of approved drugs are natural products or derived from them. Most of these compounds are launched to the market without any chemical modification, and some others are previously modified in order to obtain the desired activity. The interesting thing is only 15% from around 250,000 species of higher plants have been studied worldwide. This shows us actually that the increased potential that we have of finding novel bioactive compounds in this kind of plants. And there are also other sources of natural products. For example, marine organisms, they have been even less studied than higher plants, which basically increases the potential chances of finding bioactive molecules. Some good examples from drug discovery from natural sources, we have vinblastine, which is an anti-cancer compound obtained from the Madagascar periwinkle plant, or Taxol, which is another anti-cancer compound obtained from the bark of the Pacific yew tree. More than 80% of the increasing life expectancy for people who suffer cancer is due to the new treatments, where more than 50 and 60% are given to new drugs obtained from natural products. So the Biodiscovery Natural Product Group was established in 2014 at the University of Melbourne. The first step of the project was first to target Southern Australia biodiversity. This step was approached by first looking by literature review, looking for species that haven't been deeply studied, and also by interviewing expertises in traditional medicine here in Australia. Then we proceed to screen the extracts for biological activity. Once we get the preliminary results of the extracts that have some positive or some bioactivity, then we proceed to isolate the bioactive compounds. Then characterize the structures through analytical instrumentation, and then we retest them to see which of the isolated molecules are the ones that have the biological activity. So our collection consists in 17 bryophytes, 6 liverworts, 11 mosses, 24 medicinal plants, 7 marine algae, 1 lichen, and the biological activity that we're going to be testing or extracts are antimalarial, antimicrobial, anti-cancer, anti-diabetes, and anti-inflammatory. Some of the preliminary results we got so far is antimalaria, we have 8 plants that have shown some bioactivity. Antimicrobial, 15 extracts against Bacillus subtilis, Staphylococcus coccosaurus, and methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus. For the anti-cancer, we tested against 4 cancer cell lines. Tongue cancer cell line, a cell line from a patient with tongue cancer and multiple drug resistant, breast cancer cell line, and human embryonic kidney cells. 2 extracts show bioactivity in a cell line from a patient with tongue cancer, and 3 extracts show activity in a breast cancer cell line. The other part of my project was actually a work on one specific sample. So I decided to work on Plaquemine species, which is a marine red algae that has shown to have antimicrobial activity. I'm currently at the stage of the isolation of the compounds using a high pressure liquid chromatography. And then I'll be running some experiments on the NMR and gas chromatography mass spectrometry to determine the chemical structures of the molecules. And then after isolated, they will be sent to retest them and see which of the compounds is the one that has the antimicrobial activity, and see if one of these compounds has possible any anti-cancer activity as well. Now, this project for me is really important because Ecuador is one of the 12 countries with the biggest biodiversity in the world. We are really well-located country. We have 3 different regions: coast, highland, and the Amazon. And there are different species that we might actually study them and looking for novel bioactive compounds. Approximately 15,000 species of vascular plants have been described. 31%, which is around 4,857, are native from Ecuador's Amazon region. There is a group named Quichua, which uses more than 90% of the plants that grows in 1 hectare, which is more like 307 species. And another group, Palta, they have used cinchona species to treat malaria and also to treat different other health problems, such as stomach pain, fever, mycosis, and even some dermatological uses in lupus erythematosus. This is a very interesting group, the Guaranis. This is a small isolated group that was first contacted in 1958. They are located in the Amazon region. This is one of the few groups in the world where more than 60% of the population basically did not suffer any of the Western diseases, such as hypertension, heart disease, cancer, hyperthyroidism, or anemia. And mostly because they use different medicinal plants that were available at the territory. They had the belief that plants with strong and nasty odors would eliminate symptoms from the body. And also, any plant that has a morphological similarity to a dangerous animal has the capacity to treat an injury caused by that particular animal. For example, we have this plant is called Asplundia alata. They use to treat an injury caused when somebody is bitten by a snake. So basically, that's my project, and I would like to take the opportunity to first thank the Ecuadorian government, to because the opportunity that has been given to us to study at one of the best universities here and overseas. To Associate Professor Ute Rosner, my supervisor Daniel Diaz, thank you for taking me under your wings and for allowing me to be part of your outstanding research project, or the research group, sorry. Also, I would like to thank guys from the Ecuadorian Research and Entrepreneurship Network and the Ecuador Vive for organizing this amazing event. And before I conclude, I would just like to share this quote with you that says, all that man needs for health and healing has been provided by God in nature. The challenge of science is to find it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I'm very pleased to know that both Australia and Ecuador are part of the 12 most diverse countries in the world. And we desire the best in your project. Now it's time for questions. I will remind you that there is time for 2 to 3 questions, and please raise your hands if you have a question. Someone ask? Okay, at the beginning.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I like it very much. I'm also a biotechnologist, and I wonder, how do you assess whether a new compound has a biological activity? Because of there are many types of diseases. How do you assess that?
Well, the antimicrobial activity, we didn't actually make we send the samples to a special laboratory to make the analysis. So it's based, they have different parameters to analyze samples against different bacteria, but these are the ones that show positive results. I didn't mention all the bacteria that were actually tested, but they didn't show any positive result, let's say. But the thing is, since this is one of the first parts of drug development, and you should be aware that it's really expensive, clinical trials, discovering new molecules. But there is a lot of potential, as I already showed you, that we need to make research and invest in technologies that are necessary to determine the different activity, because the compound might not be active against antimicrobial, but that might be active in a cancer cell line or in another thing. So.
Here in the middle.
Hello, I wonder, where do you want to make your research? Because if you want to do it in here, maybe the plants that you're going to get from Ecuador are not going to develop good in here. So you have to do everything there, I think. I don't know, are you going to do that?
Yeah, basically my intention is going back to Ecuador and in academia or even the pharmaceutical industry is to propose this kind of project, because Ecuador is actually going to build one of the biggest pharmaceutical industry back in South America. So it's to propose a project, but not only to produce generics, but actually to start to have a department of research where we have lots of potential. We have lots of fishes in Ecuador. So basically, that's what we need to do, is to try to promote, invest in technologies within the pharmaceutical industry or within the academia to actually promote this research, and then it can actually work on all the species we have in our country.
Thank you, Paul. Ladies and gentlemen. Our next speaker has traveled from the sunny and sophisticated capital of Queensland, Andrea Palacios. She's currently studying her last semester of a Master in Business Advanced, majoring in sustainability at the University of Queensland. She was awarded with the Dean Commendation for Academic Excellence in 2014 and accomplished strict academic requirements to be part of a research stream. In her thesis, Identifying Social Opportunities in Ecuador, a Well-Being Approach, Andrea undertook field research in Ecuadorian communities with the support of University of Queensland Business School and an Ecuadorian flagship governmental project. Andrea has extensive work experience in both private and public sectors, and defines herself as passionate about social entrepreneurship, community well-being, and sustainability. She will share with us her topic, Identifying Social Entrepreneurship Opportunities in Ecuador, a Community Well-Being Approach. Please, Andrea.
All right, thank you for such a great introduction and for giving me the opportunity to speak in this amazing event. So hello everybody, thank you for coming today. I have split my presentations in two for you this afternoon, this night. So the first part is the research project by itself, when I'm gonna tell you about what's my research about and what it hopes to contribute. And the second part is called Feeling Ecuador. This is gonna have a form of a story. In this, I'm gonna cover what we have achieved so far until now with this research. And at the end, of course, I'm gonna open this space for you to ask the question that you may have. So, let us start to give you some background. As a society, we have historically focused on the economic development. We all hear in our everyday, and even hear about GDP, about income, about employment rates. And as a business student personally, I was educated of every single way that we have to make profit or to crush competitors. But why to maximize profit? Have you ever wondered that? Are we living in an era of accumulation? And if so, has accumulation achieved its goals and made a positive impact in our countries and our lives? So the experience of advanced economy showed that this is not so. Stressing only on the economic dimension of our lives can lead to a highly imbalanced societies where social problems grow. We are very familiar with the harm that we're doing to our environment, the resources depletion. And this disparity has also led to a loss of values, cultures, and spiritual beliefs. This overall phenomenon has marginalized our communities and lessened the well-being of its members. So we have a situation here that economic development is increasing, but the community well-being is actually decreasing. With this in mind, together with a strong theoretical background that I will discuss later in my presentation, my research question was stated as, how can communities undertake entrepreneurship in a way that maximizes their well-being? So our purpose, and I'm saying we, because I'm gonna be including my supervisor, who is also the co-author of this research. Our purpose was basically to measure the overall well-being across 8 dimensions in a real community with the objective to identify areas of deficiency that inform at the same time the creation of new business products and services that can address those needs, resulting in a more balanced well-being of the overall community. So you may be wondering why does this matter? Because otherwise I wouldn't be here. So first it matters because it fills gaps in literature. So what are those gaps? The first thing is that we don't know too much about instruments of well-being measurement that can identify areas of high priority, high vulnerability, high motivation to change, and low satisfaction. And that's a part of our of the instrument that we are developing. Besides, entrepreneurship has not been seen from a well-being perspective in literature. In this sense, we don't know how we can source those business in a way that address our well-being deficiencies. So therefore, what's the solution that we're proposing in this research? First, we plan to measure the well-being across 8 dimensions in a real community. Second, we plan to identify deficiencies of well-being. Third, we wanted to teach entrepreneurship in order to assist communities so they can acknowledge the link of their well-being deficiencies with their entrepreneurship. And the last thing that we want to do with theory, because we're in a process of theory building, is link entrepreneurship with well-being deficiencies. So let me tell you about the fieldwork in Ecuador. This story begins with me. So as a scholarship recipient, as a proudly Ecuadorian student, I have always wanted to apply what I was learning even while I was doing my studies. So in September last year, I began my search for who may be interested on this kind of research in Latin America. Doing so, I found this gentleman here, Dr. Lance Newey, who is a senior academic of UQ, who is a great advocate of the development of a research agenda in well-being in Latin America communities. And thanks to whom I also got the UQ Business School support for this research. So thank you to UQ Business School as well. Next, it was time to seek other institutional networks and strategic alliances that make things happen. So fortunately, we found that Yachay thought that our project was closely aligned with both the Good Living program of our Ecuadorian government that was already introduced by our Vice Minister, and it was also aligned with his aspirations to promote an innovation ecosystem in Ecuador. So Hector Rodriguez, this young man here, and his team provided huge support in all the logistics, community coordination, and others during my fieldwork. So thank you for that, because I think they're gonna be watching this streaming. And this is what I like to call the knowledge triangulation, which I think it can become one of the vision of our scholarship policy. I consider that it's the relationship among scholarship recipients, academia, and governmental institutions and projects, which can create the biggest impact of our country and its people. Indeed, it's the people who I think are the main players in this story. Let me share with you some of the pictures of the fieldwork in Ecuador, with the Orcuqui community, by the way. So this is our preparation phase. So in this phase, we start to visit people and invite them to come along in this research with us. So we prepare a 6-day workshop in which it was the measurement tool was also approved. So this is the people of the community, and here there are some volunteers that also come along in this adventure. And this is those are pictures from well-being and business model workshops. So 33 people at the end were involved in those workshops. They participate very actively, and we had full house, and there wasn't a single space available for our workshop. So we're very happy about this. And this is our closing ceremony. So in here, the community successfully finished the course, and we were all very grateful and excited about the whole experience. So you might be wondering about the outcomes of this. So I have written there my solutions, so you can compare. We aim and what we have achieved. So first, in terms of measure well-being, we have 30 questionnaires completed. As you know, as of many of your researchers, you have also to get some of them invalidated. So some of them were not valid. Second, our questionnaires are being analyzed now for results because I'm working on my thesis this semester. Then we have, as I told you already, 33 people graduating from a 6-day workshop on well-being and entrepreneurship. And also our results are being connected now with literature with aim to build theory in regards of this. So at this point of my presentation, I will like to ask to you and myself, why does it really matter? So what it has to matter for you, for me, and for our country? So there's a question that my supervisor has asked me repeatedly, not only a couple of times, and is this if I believe that I made the right choice when I got involved in this whole adventure? But let me tell you, there are a few things in my life that I'm more proud of. This experience has opened my eyes to the critical choices that we face as a developing country and how we can be involved in shaping our future. I realized that this commitment is not only to us, but also is more importantly for our country. I came here today to tell you that we are change makers. So we made things happen from the minute we made the decision of coming here. So we first saw our studies like this mountain. So it was almost impossible to achieve. We can spend hours and hours in the library, hours and hours writing reports or making presentations such as this. Some of us even, at least one, start to think about who's gonna pay back for his scholarship. But I do believe that this has prepared us to face bigger challenges and risks, to push our boundaries, and not only to raise our economic indicators, but to really make an impact in the overall well-being in our people in Ecuador. A year ago, this was only a dream. Thank you for letting me share this with you. Thank you. Nice acknowledgement. Then I give you what some more details.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Andrea. I think our country and many other developing countries need this kind of initiatives. Now I open the audience for questions. Who would like to go first? Okay.
Thank you for that kind presentation. I was wondering that you're working with Jaja in some institution of the government. How was your experience with them? How you can achieve, what advice you can give to us about it?
Yeah, I would say that the experience was really great because I had some advantages, a lot of support in terms of approach to the community, and they provide all the logistics and the coordination with them. One of my advice could be that if you want to approach or do some that sort of thing with a governmental institution, it's important that you first believe in what you're going to do, and then try to grab the things that both you and the institution are aligned with, to raise their interest of what are you going to do, and highlight what would be the benefits of it. Yeah.
There is one question here.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for that presentation. I was wondering, how do you look in 10 years? What are you like? What is your vision after this? How do you look after that? Like you just
start. That's a long way from here.
yeah, I know, but you start doing this, but then how do you you're going back to Ecuador?
In terms of the research, or
in general, like you go back, you are trying to start this project, which is really amazing. It's really interesting. How do you think what will be the next step for this?
Yeah. In terms of the research, we aim to build a long-term research agenda with YACHAI. We plan to finish this study and then share the results with them, and training them to make periodical measurements of well-being to see how the things that they're doing are impacting communities. So that's in terms of the research, and in terms of me, I'm looking now for some opportunities to do my PhD. And if I fail on that, I think I will be more than glad of being part of a governmental institution at the beginning, because I think I can make a bigger impact from there. Yeah, that's my plans.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Our next speaker has traveled from the city that has the incredible opera house, Sydney. Lucia Carrion. She is a PhD researcher candidate in the Faculty of Engineering and IT Management at the University of Technology, Sydney, UTS. She holds a Bachelor of System Engineering and a Master in IT Management from Catholic University of Ecuador in Quito. Prior to joining the research field, Lucia had 9 years of recognized work experience in IT multinational companies. She was an associate teacher at some universities and worked for government institutions in Ecuador. And she had her first experience as a lecturer at UTS. Lucia's main research interests are on data management and heritage preservation. Her presentation today is about her current research, which is a standardized framework for digital data and cultural heritage presentation. Lucia.
Good afternoon with everyone. Thank you for coming. I want to present my research. The topic of my research is data, a standardized framework for digital data and cultural heritage preservation. I want to focus on, I try to explain in a good words and a good explanation about that. Sorry, what happened? No, this is not my topic, really. Looks good, yeah. Netflix, things like that, yeah. Yeah, sorry, someone knows. Okay. Sorry about that. It happens always to the IT people, but okay, I will explain you my topic. I have that a part of that content that is related with first, like a structure of the research. That is first the overview. What's the meaning of the topic? Sometimes when we have a topic of a PhD, it's like a long keywords and a long kind of sentence. But sometimes it's good try to explain what the keywords, it's the real meaning for that. So I have the overview, the background, the description for that. I would like also to focus in the steps of this research and also try to do the significance, the case studies, that is also important because in that part, it's not only include on the specific parts or countries, it's a real, do you know that technology is worldwide, so you can access and you can explain like that, and the conclusion and the reference for that. So, at the beginning, I try to explain first, the first part of my topic is related, what is a framework, what is a standardized framework? It means to establish a common practice for to interpret, to analyze. In the second part, you have the digital data. What is digital data? How you can use that digital data and how you can understand and transform the physical data to digital data. In the third part that I would like to explain is a cultural heritage. What is that? Heritage is one of the keywords of my whole research, that it's related also not only with the historical things, but also with the things that we can keep for a long term. And finally, we have that word that is also important, that is preservation, how I can preserve the information for a long period of time. So the background for that is our reality. What happened today? We have our digital age, that is the way that we can gather that dynamic relationships. We have social networks, we have our information in the open places. What does it mean? It means that this is not the era that we have the privacy. Sometimes the challenge of the IT people or the computer science is how we can do for the security, for the privacy. But nowadays, we have a huge amount of information, but at the same time, we have to filter that information. So now there is not a problem how we can do for that information to gather that or to keep that information, but the challenge today is how I can filter that information and how I can classify and organize that. So we have a specific characteristic for the information. We have not really a technical things that we have to focus, but for example, how we can do for the information for integrity, consistency, reliability, availability. And we have two parts of the information. What does it mean? We have one challenge in one side for how I can access to the information, and in the other side, how I can do with the context of that information. And we have that challenge of how we can create a new knowledge. We have also technologies down this research, so it could be cloud computer, big data, Internet of Things, terms that actually it's really important. So the third part about the description, one of the things or the inspirational things that we have for that, it's the heritage concepts. What is the heritage? And one of the perspectives of UNESCO, for example, is how I can gather that historical things or that information through the world heritage. We have that, we have here the meaning of that. So we have the world heritage like our legacy from the past, what we live with today, and what we pass on the future generation. With the information, we always generate information, so it means that we have information from the past, our present, and what we can do with the future information. So in that part of heritage preservation, specifically, we have that challenge of how we can manage that, how we can do with that information. We can divide that research also in these three specific parts. The first part, like any project that we can develop, is to understand the process. When we manage information, we don't have a real meaning of the information. We have to have contact with the experts. For example, if we want to go to the cultural things, to the sociological things, financial things, geographical things, we have to go to the experts. So first, we have to understand the nature of that information that we want to manage. Second, we have to design that. This is like the part that I have to focus, because in that part, if I understand the things that I have to focus, I can design a process for that. In the third part, we have to build an effective architectural model. This is like the specific part that IT people or systems engineer focus on that. And finally, we have a high-level solution. This is like the steps that we have for that process. So we have also, in one part, the problem or the issues that we have to focus, but in the other side, we have also which are or who are the stakeholders for that project. So we have three specific parts that I want to focus. First, the government entities generates a lot of amount of information, and we can manage that information in a specific way. In the second part, we have also business enterprises that we have another kind of information that we have to manage, and the sociological or technical cultural area. We have to focus in that part because preservation always is generated by that. I call that like a digital society, because if we can see the meaning of that information inside, it's always related with digital world. The significance that we have here is first the amount of the information that we have today. Second, how we can do with innovative ideas to do that. How to have, or the meaning that I said to you about what is preservation, is how we can keep for a long term through generations the real information or the real important information that we have to keep. The digital area also have that two sides that I explained you, that is accessibility and contextualization. And also we have the power of knowledge. It's like how I can generate and how I can manage that information. So in a sense, my research is, or summarize, my research is related with that. The digital data, serendipitous, heritage preservation, based model and software architecture that is going to improve the relevance and uses of the information. This is like the principal issue or the principal part that I want to manage. We have here like the process, or like a simple process that I can call. And it's really simple because I want to explain and summarize that. Like we have one problem, one solution. And if we can see in the middle, we have the innovation or the research around that way that we can manage that information. So we have the vision, the knowledge, and specific keywords that we can see in the research. So we can manage expectations. We can see, for example, the demanding, how is the process, how is the requirements for that. I have also the phases or specific phases in my research. So the first part is how I can do with the context, the situation, the relationship. The second part, like a technical part, I put there a few diagrams, like only try to explain that inside of that is a real modeling, a real part, how I can manage, for example, databases, how I can do with that kind of information, how I can manage a structured data or unstructured data, and how I can do with that. So the designing is also focused with that. I call that like heritage preservation, like a whole model that I can explain and organize that. And the phase 3, we have a real architecture system. What does it mean? It means that I have a producer, I had a consumer, and inside of that I have a specific kind of information that I can manage. And in the phase 4, I will have a product and a process that I call a technology prototype that I can share with any society, any digital society that I explained. So I try to also to find a specific graphic to show you what is the idea that I want to show you. It's like that is how we can do with heritage worldwide, how we can do. There are a lot of initiatives of digitalization around the world. For example, UNESCO is one of the entities that is really try to develop that around the world. But now it's like how I can focus within a specific kind of information. So we have here any kind of information, any country that we have, anything, because we understand that the information nowadays is real universal. So we have here also the final model that I showed you. And the principal part of my research that I know, even if I am, my focus is in technology, I know that this kind or this solution of preservation, it's not related really with technological things or technical things. So one of the case of the studies that I want to focus with another researchers that I want to show you now is how I can do, for example, if I want to preserve not only information of libraries, because always preservation, digitalization is always related how I can scan, for example, books or how I can do with papers. But nowadays the challenge is, for example, how I can preserve dances. In that case, I want to show you like one of the cases of the studies that we want to share with another researchers from Ecuador also, is how to keep, for example, the traditional dance that called La Bomba that you know that dancers in El Chota. So how you can do that? There are another explanations about that. For example, in a specific application for an Indian dance that could be like an example, you can do like how you can gather that movements and how you can explain like a process of dancing. There are also not only that part of research, it's also how you can do for the implementation. And there is a commercial business, for example, initial public offering, and how you can do for the funding for that solution. One of the specific things also, and one of the vision for preservation is to keep that open source software. Preservation is always related with open source and not really to confidentiality, but always related how you can access the universal information. So the conclusion for that is like first, that part that preservation doesn't mean that you have to focus on technological things. It's related more to commitment and policies around any kind of entities. Also that part of accessibility and meaningful, how you can understand information. And also one of the challenges is how to change the context of heritage, not related always with historical things, but also with technological things. And finally, I want to show you only that we generate our own heritage, we generate our own transcendence, and I am one of the persons that is for the self-preservation. Our knowledge, our things, our knowledge that we generate is for us, but also to transcendence through the time. So we have here like the reference, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Lucia. I totally agree that we are living in a digital era and technology can help us to preserve historical data. These are the best. Now it's time for questions. Who would like to? Okay, there is a question in the back. Yeah.
Hi, really like your presentation. And one of the things that I'm wondering about, because the total outcome of your research seems quite interesting. But nevertheless, I would like to know, how would you do to not letting the digital medias and the digital resources to take over the physical spaces and the physical heritage and everything? Whereas for me, the most viable and the most correct option would be that they walk along and the one supports on the other one.
Okay. If I understand your question is related with one of the challenges for that situation, if we have a physical or the media, one of the challenges to do that is how you can standardize the information. This is like the specific part. So I think that if we have a specific formats or a specific media that we can gather that, it's like we can reach the objective of that research. I'm not sure if I answer your question. I think no. Okay, no, if you want to ask something more, yes, for me it's okay.
¿Cómo harías para no dejar que la conservación digital no reemplace a los espacios físicos reales, que no vayamos directamente después a una era en donde solo nos basemos en lo digital?
Okay, in that part really there is a gap between the digital things and also the physical things. There's also a challenge because what happened now is like we have a digitalization now, for example, from now, but what happened with that gap if you generate information? I think the challenge, it's not all digital or all physical, because digitalization is also to recognize that we have that dependency for the physical things. For example, you can do with the technology how you could have an approach with sculptures, where the books were things that is from ancient ages, but at the same time is how it's a process how you can replace that. I believe that digitalization, that's why also I didn't put in my topic digitalization, because sometimes when you relate digitalization, it's like nothing physical, but not always preservation. It's like the sociological term that you can understand. It is like try to keep that information, even if you have physical or even if you have digital.
One question. Okay.
So who decides what counts as cultural heritage? Like, is it governments or businesses or just the common people? I don't know.
Yeah, this is one of also the challenges of that, because at the beginning I tried to explain you that the best way to classify that information is to go to the experts. For example, what happened with the IT people specifically? Because we have the technology, but sometimes you don't, not sometimes, most of the times, we don't have that part of the field. It depends on that, because you have to go to the entities that have that information. It's also critical, that part that you mentioned, and also important, because you are not a god to decide what is good and what is bad for that information, how you can filter that it's good to preserve or not preserve, but it depends also for the field. Because if you have legal things, for example, you have to know that this is a specific. For the cultural things, I try to understand that you have to go to the experts, so you could have like a research weight to select that.
Thank you. Following in the technological area, I would like to introduce to our next speaker, Martín Reynoso. He's a master candidate in the Graduate School of Science at Melbourne University. He holds an electronic engineering degree from San Francisco de Quito University in Ecuador. He also holds a black belt in a very peculiar martial art, Munhinkan Budo Taijutsu. Martín has been part of the Microsoft Research Center for Social Natural Users Interfaces for 1 year, where his focus of research is on education of motor skills with new technologies. Martin's main research interests are on immersive technology, virtual reality, and augmented reality. His presentation today is about how he developed a system called One Body. His topic is e-learning martial art with virtual reality and full body sensors. Martin.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm going to talk about really technological stuff, but in a simple kind of way so we can all understand it quite fast. And so I'm going to talk about my passion first, how I entered to the Microsoft Research Center for Natural User Interfaces. how I found the problem I want to solve and how I developed that solution, and the future of my testing the solution, and by some conclusions on what is in my future plan. So my passions are that I'm an electronic engineer, I'm a video gamer, and I love technology, and also I do martial arts. And this is it's not quite particular everything, just the martial arts thing, because engineers that play video games and love technology is not such a different thing. I approached, when I came to Australia, to the Microsoft Social Natural User Interface Lab in the University of Melbourne that was just starting. And I went there to ask for a project because I wanted to start working with them. I didn't have any project or any idea. And that's when I met my supervisor, and he told me, okay, what makes you different, or what makes you special for this, or for your research? What do you want to do? So I realized that the only thing that makes me quite different from all the engineers are the martial arts. And that's what I have to encourage that. So I decided to do something with martial arts, and I wanted to go back to training, but I realized that my dojo, my teacher, is back in Ecuador, and I'm in Australia. So I have to kind of fix this problem, or how can I train while being here? So I have the problem, the teacher, I have the student, and this is the idea I developed. That's how we have these video games, and we can create a virtual world when the virtual teacher, can train a virtual student. And well, with new technologies, we have body tracking. So I use the Microsoft Kinect to track the body. And with all the body tracking, I can animate the digital versions of yourself in the computer. But it's not the same training as seeing in a screen, see the teacher. I can do that with just a video conference. So I use immersive technology with the Oculus Rift to put you inside this digital body. So when you're inside this kind of virtual world, you can see your arms, digital arms, and your legs, digital legs, and see how you can interact with your teacher and your student. And that's kind of the main idea of my project. And this is called virtual reality. It's a simple way of, so how we learn? We just have a process of mimicking. So for example, in blue, we can see the teacher, and in red is the student. And we just see the teacher and try to imitate him. So we move our arms and we move our legs. And then when we are there, we think that we are all right. But it's not, if there's no feedback from the teacher to the student, we cannot be perfect. And that's when it changes. So you can see the difference between what we think we're okay and when the teacher can enter into the space and give us the feedback to do that. That's why I don't remove the teacher from the virtual reality. I don't want to have a virtual teacher. I have a real teacher that can give me real feedback and can teach me depending of my skills. So this is an example of a teacher and a student in a martial arts class. And this would be the idea of the skeleton of these two participants. And that's what I want to achieve. But if you can see and understand this, that's just not real. The second one is more real because in a virtual reality, you don't have a physical body. So you cannot punch your teacher. You can just go through your teacher. And that's the second problem I face. Like, how can you train if you cannot punch them and I cannot teach them? And that's when I realized that it's not really a problem, because if you cannot touch them, then you can enter into them. And that seems like a good idea to teach. So that's when we decided to release this, or define this project called One Body, because you share one body with your teacher in just changing this idea of training in a mimicking way to a following up way. So the idea of One Body is to follow the teacher movement in simple instructions. So because you're in a digital body, you can see, you're immersive, and what you see is you see yourself and you see the teacher, and in example, in red will be the teacher, and you just have to follow the arm. So if they want to demonstrate the stance, you just follow them, move your arm. Instead of saying, like, move your eye 45 degrees and then 30 degrees, you just say, follow me. It's much, much simpler. So this is an example of a teacher and body training. So you have the left arm in blue and the student in red, try just to match it in a really simple communication way. This is what the student will see when they're in this system. And they just start looking around to their arms, they look at the arms and then just match it. And then just look again to the left arm and just match it. And it's quite simple. You don't even need to use words to describe what you are doing. So with the one body system, we believe that it's a unique experience. Also, it provides a much more easier and effective way to give instructions over distance. What applications are for this kind of research? There are many applications, just not only in martial arts or dancing or yoga, but also sports, physical education, physical training, physiotherapy, motor skills training, and rehabilitations, and any kind of training that we need our full body to move. But this is what we believe. We are not sure that it really helps. So that's why we designed a study. And the idea of the study is to have compare another types of training, for example, pre-recorded video or a Skype call, or just virtual reality, to see if with these different types of training, we can find that one body is better way to training or not. We want to test that because we cannot just say that it's working because we don't know. We just developed the technology and now we have to test it. So we're gonna produce some postures and train people and then see the results of if it's harder or easier to use and the results of what we do. So at this moment, I'm doing the study. I'm bringing people to the lab and test the prototype and test the system so we can get data. And that's between this week and next week. And in the Social National User Interface Lodge in the University of Melbourne, where every one of you are welcome to help me test the system. If you want to come and try virtual reality, you can come. And I'll have my contacts also in the last slide, so you can just contact me if you want to help me try and test this new technology. My presentation, I talk about my passions and how I entered to the social NUI, how I solve the problem, so how I get the problem of martial arts, and how I solve it with one body system, and what I'm doing now in the testing process. So as the conclusions, what I'm looking forward now is to finish the study and then finish my master's thesis. That is all next. Okay, and publish some papers, because if I just do the study and the system, but I don't publish it, it won't work and we don't get anything from that. But for that, I will need to keep working with the social natural user interface. So I will try to stay a couple of months longer just to finish all the papers and all the study that I want to do. I also will think of applying for a PhD, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do, depending on the results of my study. And as you see, this could be used to develop a product. And what my only conclusion from this presentation and from this experience is that you have to study and study hard. And we come here to study, but we don't have to forget what makes us different. And to not think that you are not doing the right thing when you have extra activities. The extra activities, that's the key part that can make you different from other researchers in the same area. And that's why, if I didn't have any martial art, I wouldn't have been here and I wouldn't have this topic to present. And thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you, Martin. A thoughtful question. You invite us to think what makes us different with how you face in your project, and maybe we can all learn martial arts. Okay. Now, due to time constraint, we are going to have just one question, okay? So, yeah.
Thank you, Martin, for a great presentation. I'm just curious how you test success of a product, or what do you?
We're not testing here learning experience, because learning will have a huge project of starting many participants and have a process of learning and then compare them. But what we're testing is how you feel about how you learn, because it's not the same experience of being there and don't understand. Because when you're in martial arts and you don't understand the teacher, it's just a frustrating process and you don't want to do that. So what we're testing, in my experience, is if for the students it's easier. So we're gonna measure many different types of how instructional perform and how well they perform the communication with us. So in my project, it's not just about the technology and if it's an efficient product and I can make money from it, but how can the teacher feels communicating to the student and how the student can communicate what they don't understand to the teacher and give this kind of link between both of the worlds. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next presentation will be presented by two students working together in this project. First, I would like to introduce you to Ana Gabriela del Hierro. She's studying a Master of Environment at the University of Melbourne, specializing in extreme waste management. She holds a Bachelor of Biotechnology Engineering from the University of Armed Forces ESPE in Quito. Prior to joining academia, Ana worked as a planning analyst for the Plant on Fertilizer Bioproduction in the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries of Ecuador. Ana's main interests are on the environmental alternatives to helping preserve natural and cultural resources. Second, I would like to introduce you to Kevin Ponce. He's also studying a Master of Environment at the University of Melbourne. He holds a Bachelor's in Molecular Biotechnology from the University of Barcelona in Spain, and he has a Master in Business Administration and Bioentrepreneurship from the Copenhagen Business School in Denmark. He's passionate about integrating science and business with the objective of creating a positive impact on the environment and society. Anita and Kevin are going to talk about their project to produce insect food from organic waste. Their topic is Insects, the future to feed the world. Anita and Kevin, please come to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for waiting for us. Now we are going to change from technology to biotechnology. So the world we have created today has problems that cannot be solved by thinking the way we thought when we created them. Albert Einstein. So now let me introduce you to a new concept for using organic waste to produce insects to feed animals. We are Insect Biotechnologies, a recent startup created by 4 students from different countries. We all share the same passion. We want to solve global environmental issues, and we want to be part of the solution. So when we just started this project, this idea for creating a business, we were talking about all the problems that the global is facing. So all these problems are related to environment, for waste disposal, and also for hunger. I know that they are not quite related, but the main factors that we took into consideration are that 19 million people are starving in the world, while 1/3 of global crops are used to feed animals. And we are also producing every year 4 billion tons of organic waste. So these data are really alarming, but we also thought about Ecuador. We wanted to do something, but we took into consideration our country. So we realized that in our country, each person generates, all the country per year generates almost 4 million metric tons. So for the year 2017, the Ministry of Environment is expecting to have 5.4 metric tons per year. So it means that we are going to increase the waste. And what are we doing right now with this waste? So 77% of households eliminate waste through collector cars. All this waste goes to a landfill, where it just stays for maybe decades to wait for degradation. Also, the remaining 23% sometimes goes to rivers, it goes to illegal wasteland. So we are really worried about this. And we don't want to be focused about the problem. We want to be focused and be the solution for all of this. So we really think, like we were thinking, are we still waiting for somebody else to do this for us? Or are we going to apply the knowledge and the technology that we have? So yes, we want to do something. We want to be the pioneers for applying biotechnological solutions, because in Ecuador, there are no industries applying this technology. They are not using organic waste to produce insects. So maybe this is a confusing idea, but we are going to take all those resources, because we are not doing anything with that. We are going to take agricultural resources, animal waste, municipal solid waste, treat them and put them in a bioreactor to have better conditions and accelerate the degradation of all this waste, and produce a substrate which is going to be helpful for our insects to grow. Once we get all these insects, we can use further processing so we can extract the proteins of these insects. So when you have these insects can be used for many things, for industry, for pharmaceutical industry, and also for food. Like, we are not going to be focused on food for humans. We are just going to be focused for food for animals. That's why we were concerned for this at the beginning, saying that hunger is also a problem, because they are giving food to animals and it's human food. So we thought, as an example, that nature is really wise. Here there is no waste. Everything is recycled. So we want to close this loop, because there is a lot of garbage in the world. Yeah, it's garbage, but for us, this is not garbage. This waste is gonna be an opportunity for us, because we will convert all this organic waste into animal feed, which is really rich in protein and fat.
Thank you, Anita. So basically, what we want to do is to integrate two processes. First of all, organic waste recycling, and the second, insect farming. By integrating these two processes, we will produce an insect-based feed that we can feed to animals. We're targeting different markets, such as the poultry market, the fish market, and the pet food market. This in Latin America is valued at $52 billion and is one of the fastest growing in the world. We will also get revenues by selling compost, which is a secondary product of our process, and also by managing the waste. This market is valuing $160 million in Ecuador. How are we going to do that? So first of all, we are already establishing a collaboration with the University of Melbourne to start a pilot in July. We're going to use waste from kitchens, restaurants, cafeterias that the university manages. However, already the University of Melbourne incurs in costs by collecting, managing, and disposing this waste. By using our project, we think that we can convert those costs into profits for the university. However, this is a new science, this is also a new business, and we understand that. So we're going to undertake research next semester, focusing on consumer introduction barriers, as well as insect farming and waste management in Ecuador. At the same time, we're building a network of scientific advisors and partners that can help us accelerate our business. Why is this industry not already in the market? There are three main barriers. The first one is policy and regulation barriers. This is a new technology, so there is no policy framework for that. The second one is there is no mass production technology standard. And the third one is consumer awareness and knowledge barriers. This is insects, so people say, what are you going to give me for my animals? And we have to manage that. We expect that in a couple of years in Europe and North America, there will be already policy regulations thanks, Anita, that will allow the production and consumption of insects. However, this is yet not the case in developed countries. This is different in developing countries. Take Thailand or China, for example. If you've ever been there, you'll notice that they have insect markets in the street. You can buy a grasshopper, you can have a scorpion. Similar happened to Ecuador. In Ecuador, regulations are more flexible, and indigenous people have been eating insects for almost always. So, I got lost then. Yeah. So we would like to give you 3 main take-home messages to whom. First of all is waste. Waste as a value, both economically and environmentally. Second one, is that insects can compete with other sources of feed, such as soybean and fish meal. It's economical, it's safe, and it's sustainable. Third one is there are lots of policy barriers that we have to overcome. And I like to take the chance that I'm here in the Parliament of Victoria to encourage policymakers to improve the arena for new business to emerge in this area. And last, I like to say that with this has an enormous potential for Ecuador. Ecuador is a small country. We can compete with large meat producers such as Brazil, but insects require small land portions and can potentially produce enough food to feed all Ecuadorians in the future. We also think that with this project, we can reduce the need to import other sources of feed for animals, such as soybean, and elaborated products such as fish meal, thus therefore increasing food security in Ecuador. I think that this project is very interesting, not only in Ecuador, also in Australia and around the globe. And finally, but I also like to introduce our 2 other team members who are not here, but form part of our team, Django and Jorge. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Anita and Kevin. Very interesting proposition. We have time for one very quick question. Yeah.
Hey, I'm wondering to know, my concern is about health issues. Well, I'm not really sure about what are the issues of insects in, like, using insects as a way to feed animals, because, like, after that, humans are going to eat the animals that eat the insects. Like, have you thought about the health issues or, like, the health concerns about that? Or, like, if there are some health concerns or they are not?
Well, one of the parts that we have for the biotechnological technique that we're going to apply includes high temperature. So we are going to ensure that all pathogens are going to be killed before we get the substrate for the insects to eat that. So you won't have any problems.
I also like to add, think about it. When you have a chicken on the farm, they like eating bugs. That's the main food.
And it's raw food.
Last but not least, I would like to present Cynthia Navarrete. She's a master's student in International Community Development at Victoria University. She currently holds a scholarship from the Australian government funded by AusAid. She holds a bachelor's degree in international business from Espiritu Santo University of Ecuador, which she completed with an academic scholarship given by the Leonardo Ortega Foundation in Guayaquil. She also spent a year abroad in Scranton University in the USA under a study abroad scholarship program. Cynthia has 8 years of experience in community service and 3 years working in a foreign consulate in Ecuador. Her presentation today is concerning her ongoing research on cooperatives. Her topic is a cooperative college from improvised areas in Ecuador. Cynthia?
Good afternoon, everyone. I know we are tired. Thank you for your patience. I promise it will be 8 minutes worth. Today, I'm going to present a project proposal for the establishment of a cooperative college for the impoverished areas in Ecuador. To begin, I would like to invite you to put yourselves in the shoes of an Ecuadorian woman whose name is Maria. Maria is a 54-year-old woman who was born in a poor area in Ecuador. Assuming difficult responsibilities at a very young age, she started to work as a domestic worker in a house of a wealthy family at the age of 14. While working, she completed her high school education where she graduated as a seamstress. Maria faced exploitation from her employer. Even though she worked more than 10 hours per day, daily, 10 hours, more than 10 hours daily, her salary was less than the minimum national wage, and she only started to receive the Social Security benefits in recent years. For many years, Maria was forced to live alone her 4 children at home while she was working. And during her free time, she would sew clothes for people around her neighborhood to get some extra income. After more than 40 years of working with this family, Maria was laid off because this family moved overseas. Currently, in her 50s, Maria has little prospects to get another job. Even though Ecuador is now considered the 3rd fastest growing economy in Latin America, in 2010, 40% of the Ecuadorian people still live in poverty. And in 2014, 20.5% of the Ecuadorian population still live in poverty. And Maria is part of these statistics. Cases such as Maria motivate me to come up with this idea of the establishment of this cooperative college in Ecuador, because I strongly believe that in order to fight poverty, not only in Ecuador, but around the world, we must first recognize that poor people can be agents of their own development. Now, I'm going to give you an overview of what I'm going to discuss with you today. I'll begin by explaining what cooperatives are, and then I will describe how this idea will work in Ecuador. The International Cooperative Alliance has defined cooperatives as the autonomous association of persons united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. As a clear contrast with the mainstream understanding of development and business practice, including hierarchical decision-making, competition, exclusion of non-conforming individuals, etc., cooperative practice rests on 7 main principles. They are united voluntarily, so people can free to join or leave. They are distinguished from shareholding firms by their democratic nature, which means one member, one vote basis. Economic participation on the basis of membership rather than the size of the investments. They are independent of the government, and they are not owned by anyone else than the members. And because they are member-owned businesses, they make a commitment to the education of their members. And because the members share similar values, they are expected to cooperate with each other. And finally, even though they are designed to meet their members' needs, they also have responsibility with the wider community. Here are some facts about the cooperative worldwide. Cooperatives have benefited about 3 billion of people worldwide. More than 800 million of people in the world today are organized into a cooperative of the diverse economic activities. Cooperatives employ 250 million people in the world and generate 2.2 trillions of US dollars in turnover, according to the World Cooperative Monitor. The impact of cooperatives has been so great that the United Nations declared 2012 as the International Years of the Cooperative. I propose the establishment of a cooperative college named a cooperative college for the poor. This cooperative college will be an unique education institution specializing in education approach which put cooperation rather than competition into practice. It will focus on providing training and mentorship, knowledge and skills, and ethical commitment needed to initiate, develop, and sustain cooperatives to support poor and disadvantaged people in Ecuador. The goal is the establishment of new cooperatives, but also collaborating with existing ones. This project will work as an incubator for new ideas to create new cooperatives, but also it will be a place where people can share knowledge and network. You may be wondering how this will work. The cooperative college will develop and deliver courses and workshops to support people to achieve the skills to put cooperative values and principles into practice. The college will collaborate nationally and internationally with universities, NGOs, government departments, especially with those organizations which can assist with the establishment, maintenance, and further development of the know-how that is needed to establish new cooperatives across many fields of production, distribution, consumption, education, care, etc. We are especially interested in establishing ongoing connections with the Cooperative College in Manchester, UK, the International Cooperative Alliance, the Mondragon Cooperative in Spain, the Self-Employment Women Association in India, and Borderlands Cooperative in Australia, and others. In Ecuador, with the establishment of the 2011 legislation for cooperatives, confirms that the development potential for cooperatives to lift people out of poverty and independency is recognized by the current government. And this proposal offers an important element in the concept of national-wide strategy to respond to this challenge. Getting back to Maria's case, I believe if Maria could be trained in this cooperative college, she could join others to start cooperatives of seamstresses. Working together with others of her kind will bring Maria many benefits, the less of which will be sharing ideas, the pooling of resources, access to biggest markets, great independence, a sense of social inclusion, and the list goes on. As final thoughts, given our decades-long experience with these failed mainstream developing programs and initiatives which have seen inequalities rise worldwide, as well as in Ecuador, the challenge of alleviating poverty and creating life for dignity for all may seem huge, but difficult problems require innovative ideas and solutions. And not just trying the same failed formula again and again. Cooperatives are experiencing great success in many places where they have been introduced since 1844 in the UK. We only have to realize that people themselves can be the greatest resource if they find a way to work together. If you were Maria, would you like to join this college and see that there are people like you around the world that can join hands and start improving your life? I would like to thank EREN and Ecuadorian Vive for the invitation today. I would like to thank Maria for her supporting of my life. And also a special thanks to Jack, because he's my supervisor. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Very important proposition you are giving us. Yes, just one very quick question. Someone has a question? Here, yeah, here. She's going to give you the microphone. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry if I missed it. If you already, I don't know if you already talk about that in your presentation. Sorry if I missed it, but and I'm not trying to be evil's lawyer, but how have you thought in any model let you achieve sustainable financial sustainability with this project? So how you if this come to reality, what would be the financing of it?
Well, as you hear before, I have been supporting my education through international aid, and I have the knowledge and have the skills to find international aid to support this social project. There are foundations, there are international organizations who could support this project, as well as they have supported my whole education. So yeah, there is always way to find.
Yeah, my concern was if you want to build it as self-sustainable, or are you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. You know, when we finish, when we are studying in universities or high school, we are not teach to be sustainable. We are teach to leave the high school to find jobs. So what I'm looking for is to teach people to be their own resources, to produce their jobs themselves, rather than going to any company and find jobs.
Yeah,
you know? It will be a sustainable way for them also. So,
yeah, that's great, and congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Denise Sanchez, representing the Ecuadorian Research and Entrepreneurship Network, EREN, would like to give you some words before we close this magnificent event. Denise?
On behalf of the Ecuadorian Research and Entrepreneurship Network, EREN, we would like to thank all the members of Ecuador Vive for allowing us to be here, participating in their third annual Ecuadorian Ideas That Matter conference. This year, EREN is grateful and proud to have collaborated with them to carry out this amazing event that has brought together esteemed institutions from both Australia and Ecuador to attend this prestigious and well-regarded conference. We would also like to deeply thank the Parliament of Victoria, especially the Honorable Speaker Telmo Languillen, for firmly believing in the strengthening of relations with Ecuador, evidenced by being part of the Ecuadorian community events, and for opening the doors tonight and hosting our event in this magnificent Queen's Hall. We wish to acknowledge the support and deeply thank the Ecuadorian government through the Embassy of Ecuador in Australia, the participation of the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ecuador, and the presence of delegates of CENESID. With that being said, we would like to thank and express how deeply proud we are of the brilliant Ecuadorian minds that presented tonight. Thank you for honoring the Ecuadorian community living abroad by sharing your high-quality research and entrepreneurship projects. Your presentations are our motivation to spread our own ideas, and each one of you inspire us to believe that those ideas are worth sharing. Simply by extending and exchanging those ideas, creating dialogues, we are developing those building blocks in order to achieve something even bigger. This is the core reason why EREN was created. We seek to make those building blocks a reality. We firmly believe that the knowledge and experiences acquired living here in Australia and studying in these elite universities will get us to those stepping blocks. By capitalizing on these experiences and establishing networks, we can achieve great things and contribute to a positive change in Ecuador. Therefore, EREN encourages all Ecuadorians living in Australia to take advantage of these platforms to share your research and entrepreneurship ideas. Remember the immense impact of these events, which can open doors to many opportunities for collaborations and networking. This is why at the end of this session, after certificates and picture session, we would like you to invite To stay here, network, and meet the authorities invited, our special guests, and maybe you can even meet your possible future partners, your clients, and research collaborators. Thank you.
The Ecuadorian ambassador in Australia, Raúl Gangotena, would like to give us some words.
Since you are generously receiving me, I'm going to take only 20 minutes to finish this session. I want to say two ideas. I want to share two ideas with you. First, the splendor of the place that we had for this presentation of yours, thanks to the President of the Legislative Assembly of Victoria, has matched the splendor of the creativity, the ingenuity, the courage of the presentations that we have heard. I was personally shaken by each one of them, either by the martial arts or by the insects or by the digitalization of I don't know what. But the point is, and the cooperation of all of yours, and especially I have been shaken by the generosity of your souls, because you are enjoying the privilege given by the Ecuadorian people, but you are desperate to give back your thanks with something that's going to be useful for people to overcome poverty and to become better, to have a better life. The summa causa with which we enjoyed the beginning, the very beginning of this meeting. I don't want to say more because I have deeply emotion and I'm going to be thrown out of this splendorous place if I keep talking. Thank you very much, and we are going to proceed to give a certificate, and we're going to ask the Vice Minister to give a certificate together with the President to the people who have made this effort.
Ambassador, could you also join us, please? As a last point in our event, we're going to give the certifications, and a representative from Ecuador Vive and EREN will deliver these certificates. So I would like to call Andrés Salvador, representing Ecuador Vive, and Luisa Hunda, representing EREN, to confer the certificate to Paul Guillen. Lisbeth Vinuesa, representing Ecuador Vive, and Daniel Pazmiño, representing EREN, will confer the certificate to Andrea Palacios.
¡Viva el Ecuador!
The Ambassador Raúl Gangotena, representing representing the embassy, and Hector Apollo, representing Ecuador Vive, will confer the certification to Lucia Carrion. Fernando Játiva, representing Ecuador Vive, and Estefania Ferro, representing EREN, will confer the certificate to Martín Reynoso. Estefanía Morales, representing Ecuador Vive, and Iván Sánchez, representing EREN, will confer the certificate to Cynthia Narváez. Sorry, Cynthia Navarrete. I would like to invite all Ecuador Vive and EREN and all the speakers to take one photo. Sorry, Kevin.
Group photo.
Mireya Serrano, representing Ecuador Vive, and Shaz Rival, representing EREN, will confer the certificate to Ana del Hierro and Kevin Ponce. Now, I would like to invite Ecuador Vive and EREN and all the speakers. Will you please come to the stage?
Que vengan todos.
Yo pienso que todos.
One picture and then all of us.
Sí, sí, sí.
Yeah.
Venga, venga.
Ahí está. Exactamente. Se pueden sentar aquí.
Al menos bajar el stage.
No sé si se puede bajar. Ah, perfecto.
Eso.
Ah, por
Ahí se nos vea.
aquí. La primera vez que me entero que se baja esto. Nunca lo había visto. Muy bueno.
Vente aquí.
No se puede. Ay, perdón.
Pero más de un intento. A ver, otro más. Perfecto. Ahora vengan todos los estudiantes aquí adelante.
¡Oh!
Sí, sí, sí.
Les invitamos a los estudiantes.
Está bien, está bien. Entran todos aquí adelante, lo hemos hecho antes.
Sí, mire la plaza.
Pasen. Vengan, vengan, vengan.
No quiere. Valeria. Si no, pedirle a alguien de ella.
Muy bien.
Seguridad.
¿A dónde? ¿Allá?
Donde sea ahí.
No.
Pero aún falta, chicos. Vengan todos. Por ahí acostados, algo.
Eso. Hablamos. Muchas gracias.
Yo soy feliz cuando vengo a conversar con ustedes. Siempre me gusta lo que hacen.